When I was a programmer between 2003 to 2006, I was aware of only one methodology, which was waterfall. And waterfall methodology is one of the prominent software development life cycles at that point in time, wherein it follows this step-by-step approach in terms of first people gather the requirements and then they come up with design, coding happens, testing, and then deployment and then maintenance. So there were so many cons out of this waterfall methodology, and because of which agile methodologies have come into existence. And ever since agile is released into market, or ever since people started adapting these agile methodologies, they have become so popular. And most of you might be aware of this Scrum, DSDM, FDD, BDD, extreme programming, so on and so forth. So these are all various flavors of agile which are helping in faster time to market in terms of deploying the applications faster than what it used to be when executed or when implemented with waterfall lifecycle, with waterfall methodology. But how many of us are aware how to implement this agile in a right way and making agile work for you? In case if you are curious, this episode is for you. In today's episode, let's chat with Balesh Raghurajan. This is the Guiding Voice podcast, the Guiding Voice for a better future. Folks, I'm your host, Naveen Samala, a fellow IT professional on a mission to shape the careers and lives of millions across the globe. And through the Guiding Voice, we help successful leaders share their knowledge and wisdom with the world so that our audience will acquire more knowledge per every minute than any other podcast in this space. Thank you so much for joining me today. And today we are going to discuss an important topic, making agile work. And we are extremely pleased to have Balesh part of the Guiding Voice journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Balesh, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice. It's so nice to have you part of our journey.
Thank you so much, Naveen. You guys are awesome, and the Guiding Voice is doing an amazing job. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. And likewise, it is so nice to initiate this conversation on making agile work. In previous episodes, we have covered how to become an agile coach. We haven't covered anything related to how to implement agile in a right way. And I'm glad you brought this topic, and it is so fascinating to me as well. And I'm looking forward for this conversation. So let us move forward with the first question. So Balesh, maybe you can briefly share your career journey and top 3 things that have helped you so far in your professional life.
Sure. I think my career journey is as much as what anybody else would have gone through in the IT industry. However, there were different moments in which I had specific learning opportunities, and these learning opportunities shaped my thinking. So one of the key things, as you also mentioned earlier about the waterfall approach, one of the key things that I learned initially, and that is what I was practicing, is a strong command and control structure of executing projects. I will be the central focus point. I will tell my team what to do. I will talk to my customers, anchor the team. I would do everything. At a point in time, when I was learning, what am I really doing? And, is there a better way to do it? That's when I realized that, rather than doing the top-down approach, let's do more of empowerment. Let's, allow people to take decisions, because everybody around us are smart people. That was a big, learning that I had. And I got this kind of enlightenment through a learning program that I attended during my days in TCS. From that moment onwards, I chose to run projects very differently through empowerment, by respecting people and so on and so forth. The second learning that I had through the journey was whenever we talk to customers, whenever we approach customers for anything, to deliver a project, to sell, or whatever role that we do, typically we tend to believe, at least for people of Indian origin, we tend to believe customer is right. Do whatever they say. Customer is king. Customer is God. We are very conditioned to these thoughts. One of the big learnings, and I got this learning through a book called Software of the Mind, which is really about understanding organizational cultures across the world. And therefore, how we adapt to those cultures, being aware of those cultures. This book was introduced to me by another colleague in early 2000. When I read the book, I simply caught on, to the concepts in that. So customer is not necessarily king, but customer is human being who has to be respected. You have to help add value to the customer. And that is more important than taking the orders. That was a big learning for me after I read this book about understanding people behave in a particular way and things like this. The third one was, if I marry the two, if you can empower, get more power out of your teams, and if you really add value to the customer, how can the world around us change? How can the work environment change? And that was a big realization for me in terms of how do I draw the benefits of both these things put together. So this is where agile thinking, agile mindset really comes into play. And I took an effort to understand the principles of agile. More than understanding the process, what I really understood is the principles of agile. And that has really helped me shape myself into how I work with customers, how I deal with my teams. And I think these three are, I would say, kind of defining moments in my career at different points in time. They did not occur at the same time, but over a period of time, the thoughts evolved, the realization sunk in. And this is what I believe in practicing, and this is what I believe to propagate to others as well.
Excellent. So one training intervention has changed your fate and the fate of the clients that you are serving and all. That's what I can tell. And I could see your passion in terms of evangelizing these agile principles and especially making them work. Because I was going through your website, effilor.com, and gone through this training series that you guys have initiated, which is about agile culture essentials and all. And why do you think like we have to focus on this making agile work? Everybody is working on agile. How can they do differently, and how can we make agile work for them?
I think that's a great question. And I was also thinking around the same lines for a very long time. That I've sat through stand-up meetings, I've sat through sprint planning, I've sat through retrospectives. So I'm agile. Now, this is where the misconception really starts. People are trained into all these so-called ceremonies and rituals, and broadly these are all Scrum. And without understanding the principles of agile, people assume this is agile. If I follow Scrum, it is agile, and that's the end. What is missing is the core understanding of why culture is essential to drive team output. Why is a mindset change needed to add value to the customers? This is really missed in any type of training, most of the training. I mean, there are certain companies that really train the people on mindset and culture, which is fantastic. I love those initiatives. But when this is not addressed, people kind of fall into what is called as Scrum fall. You follow Scrum, but within Scrum, you actually do waterfall. So Scrum fall is what is followed in most technology projects. And there is an annual survey done by, State of Agile. If you do a Google search on State of Agile report, there's an annual survey. Consistently, year after year, they keep saying that culture, team behavior is the reason why the power of Agile is not really leveraged. And we did our own research. We spoke to different companies. We did some surveys. We spoke to different practitioners of Agile, including Agile coaches. Less than 10% of them even realize, right? This is very striking data. Less than 10% of the people even realize that change is essential to move towards Agile rather than follow the process. So this is where we have to reflect on the core principles of Agile. Why did the folks that put together Agile really put it? It is about adding value to the customer. It's people over process. It's team output versus individual output. These things can be understood and driven only through a mindset change. And therefore, if you want to leverage the power of Agile, if you want to make Agile work, you really have to kind of give that importance to mindset and culture. So that is the basis, Naveen. I don't know if that helped your question or not.
No, absolutely. Because we shouldn't be doing something for the sake of it. And having gone through the training myself and all, people do it as a ceremony, as you said, as you rightly said, as a ceremony, as a tradition, as a ritual, right? And so they miss the essence of this mindset and about being fast and quick enough to deliver as per the customer expectations. You have brought in a wonderful point, and thanks for sharing that. And Balesh, if we look at the career graph of managers, engineering managers, and all the senior leaders in the industry today, gone are the days where you don't have to code after reaching manager position, right? From that perspective, and tying that with the agile world, what is the role of a manager in an agile team?
Yeah, I think one more great question from you, Naveen. One of the reasons that I believe that Agile is not very successful is because managers fear that their role is reduced or diluted. And today I'm telling 10 people what to do. I tend to position myself as a know-all person. And therefore, I will try to ensure that I'm still in control of the situation. So this is a huge mindset change that is needed in the Agile context. So one of the most beautiful things that I like about Agile is that you have to treat people in your team as adults. And this is a mindset change that is needed for managers. When you talk to people in a adult to adult conversation, you respect people as adults. You respect people as mature individuals. You respect people as people who are capable of doing what they can do. Conversely, typically managers behave in what is called as a parent-child relationship, sort of paternalistic approach. I will tell you what to do. If you want to do something, check with me first, right? So the manager's role really changes or evolves into more of someone who can facilitate how things can happen. A manager should really look what are the real challenges that the team faces. Using my experience, how can I enable the team? How can I share my experience? How can I ensure the team is able to deliver better? Right? So the focus of the manager is really about helping the team deliver the outputs rather than telling them what to do. And especially with the new age workforce, the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z workforce that is coming into the industry, across industry, not just technology, the generation requires a lot of freedom, flexibility, autonomy, and managers have to recognize that. You have to accept that. If you don't accept it, you cannot be a good manager or a leader. So big shift that is needed from a managerial standpoint is how do I facilitate? How do I enable people to be successful? One of the things we did through another study is how much time a manager spends with their team members on training. A lot of times people misconstrue this to be, okay, I will sit with my team member and teach them a particular technology skill. It could be Python, it could be whatever, it could even be mainframe, COBOL, whatever. People misconstrue this to be training. Younger generation and the workforce really looks for from managers is on-the-job training. I'm on the job, I'm in the project. I'm stuck in this particular situation. I'm not able to resolve this defect. I'm not able to understand this particular requirement. I need input on this particular architectural component. So those aspects of on-the-job training is where the team really needs help on. And this is where the manager has to focus on. The manager need not know these things. The manager need not be a jack of all arts, but the manager should know whom to call to get that help, whom to tap into to solve this problem. It could be within the team, it could be across teams, it could be outside your team, doesn't really matter. How can a manager be a problem solver, an impediment remover? This is a big shift that is needed from an agile mindset standpoint. I think this is defining thing. There are a few other things that needs to be done, but this is the most defining change needed from a manager.
Excellent insights. Balesh, now let us flip the question and talk about how not to manage the agile teams.
Yeah. So, like I said, one of the things is don't tell them what to do, right? Because if you keep what to do, it actually brings down the creativity of the team. It brings down the enthusiasm of the teams. And over a period of time, they will start looking up to the manager to solve everything. And this is when the manager becomes a single point of success and single point of failure. So one thing is, not telling the team what to do. The second thing that a manager should not do is don't try to be in control. There is a difference between being in control and being in charge. If we try to be in control, we tend to get into what is called as task management. There are 7 tasks to be done today. I will assign these 7 tasks to my team. And then what do I do as a manager? I need to call them every 4 hours, whatever, right? Hey, have you done this? This was expected by 2 o'clock. Why have you not done? Have you informed Deepak? So this is required by 5 o'clock. Where are the test cases? Because you don't have, that ability to let go, people tend to get into micromanagement. This is something that should be avoided. Now, one of the key things about Agile is about enabling the team to take decisions. So as a manager, taking all the decisions, can you step back? And we can take the lean type of approach, right? So if you talk about why something has to be done, what something has to be done, when it should be done, who should do it, and things like that, the manager should not worry about who will do it and when it should be done. That is left best to the team. The manager should focus on why something has to be done. And that is why in Agile, you really have to understand the purpose of the project. The manager has to understand the purpose of the project and articulate that to the team. The manager has to focus on what are the priorities. It could be business priorities, it could be sprint level priority, it could be release level priority. The manager really focuses on only those 2 things, why and what. And therefore, if you are clear about these things, when the team is stuck or when the team is going through, let's say, an escalation, the manager helps focus on the priorities. Hey guys, this is what we are supposed to do in this particular release or in this particular sprint. These are the goals at the sprint level. Let us focus on that. Let's not digress. Right? That's something that the manager should do rather than saying, hey, why did you allow this to happen? How come this happened yesterday and you didn't tell me? This is what typically managers get into, getting too deep into root causes. You have to focus on what should be done. Let the team decide who will do it, when they will do it, and maybe even how they will do it. The teams are capable. They're very, very knowledgeable, and that's why you have them in the team, right? So allowing the team to focus on who will do, when they will do, and how they will do is something that a manager should practice. And this is something that a manager typically decides. Now you're allowing the team to decide. So manager focuses on the why and what, let the rest be decided by the team. That could be a kind of a thumb rule or a guideline in terms of what a manager should do and what a manager should not do. Mm-hmm. If that is followed, you automatically follow the Agile principles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Now, I understand the differences and the expectations, especially from the manager in the Agile world. That brings me to my next question with regard to the distribution of tasks and assigning the responsibilities, taking ownership, accountability, and all. We have certain tools like RACI, which is about who has to be responsible, who has to be accountable, who has to be consulted, and who is the interested party that need to be kept informed on the progress of the project, so on and so forth. No matter how many RACI matrices we create in a project and all, if the project is successful, everybody tries to claim the credit and all. But if it is the other way around, people start getting into the blame game and all. No, I did it on time, somebody didn't do it and all. So likewise, if you were to understand the team dynamics and all, how do we ensure that the ownership aspect is dealt in a structured way? Can you share some insights based on your experience?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there are some very interesting data points we collected around this particular topic that you spoke about, especially on driving accountability and how do you manage, let's say, stakeholders within the team and things like that, particularly on the RACI aspects, right? Responsibility, accountability, and all. What we found is that about, we did a study of several hundreds of project managers, and found that about 40 to 45% of the managers actually do not have a very good handle on stakeholder management. So stakeholders could be internal or external or customer, right? So one of the things that we found in the study is 45% of the PMs need help on how to manage your stakeholders. Because they don't have enough enablement on how to manage stakeholders, they get confused around how do I drive accountability? How do I drive ownership? And in fact, most of the managers do not know the difference between what is accountability and what is ownership. Accountability is something that is given to you by virtue of your role, position. So for example, if I'm, let's say a UI developer, my specialty is UI. So from a project context, My accountability is to ensure that the UI is something that would add value to the business. This is what the business really looks for, ease of using the application. That's my accountability. It is given to me because that is the role that I have in the project. Ownership is something that is very intrinsic. I, as Balesh, feel that the UI has to be very intuitive. Nobody is telling me. People only told me you are responsible for UI. You have to get this done for the project. Whether the UI should be intuitive, whether it should have minimal number of clicks to get a transaction done, whether it really adds value to the business in completing the life cycle of the transaction, that is my ownership. That cannot be given to me. That is mine. It has to come from within. A lot of times people don't necessarily understand between what is ownership and what is accountability. Now, when it comes to ownership, accountability can be given. I can call my team member and tell them as a manager, hey, Naveen, these are the expectations I have out of you. Can you please take care of these things? And, I can kind of chat with you to see, have you understood the expectations? Do you need any help? How can I support you? I can give you accountability. Ownership has to be driven from a very different perspective because it's very personal. So the structured way of doing it is to really connect with each person to understand what are your personal, drivers. How much have you understood as to, the meaning and purpose of the project? And I'll give you a very simple anecdotal experience. About 4 years ago, 2018, I was coaching a team in Noida. Very small team. As part of a larger organization, this particular team was a 4-member team. Their job was to write certain code that will enable automation of SMS messages for certain banking transactions. Right? Really, the way the team understood their job. I write a code. When a particular transaction happens, this particular trigger will initiate my code. Once my code is initiated, I have to send a text message with certain pre-programmed stuff, and that will be sent to the customer's phone as an SMS. When we really looked at this particular team and we were trying to understand, okay, so why do you need to send the SMS? What is the trigger point? Have you understood the trigger point? And the code is such a small piece of code, right? So you've written such a small piece of code. Have you even understood what is the trigger point for this? You will be surprised when we dug into it and when we understood what these guys are doing. These guys, a bunch of early 20s type of age group people, they were writing the code for 2-factor authentication for all banking transactions. And their code, their company is an OEM supplier to several core banking solution providers in the country. And then we started digging into, okay, who are these banking products and where are these products getting found? That about 75 to 80% of the banks in India use these products. And the OEM from this particular company goes into these 75-80 banks across the country, which basically means banking transaction wise, 75% of the population that does banking transactions, the code written by these 4 people touches that many people in the country. When this was explained, their eyes really popped out. I said, boss, anytime somebody does a debit card transaction, credit card transaction, anyone does an online money transfer, your code gets triggered. The OTP that you get on your own phone is because of your own code. Have you understood that? When that was explained, their eyes really widened. It didn't strike them. It didn't occur to them. So one of the most powerful things to drive ownership is to help people understand the business purpose of why something is being done. I've always told my team, I used to work for a large financial services customer. I always tell my team, whenever there is some production issue that you get at middle of the night, do not ask which module, which job, which transaction. Ask how many customers are not able to do their transactions. Are there any trades impacted? Talk around the business language. If you do not appreciate the business impact, you will always look at what you're doing as 10 lines of code and 20 lines of changes. That is really something that has to change. So understanding the business purpose and understanding why you're doing something drives an immense level of ownership among teams. There are a few other things, and I'll just talk about a couple of things to kind of highlight how this can be done. The other thing that we have found extremely strong, extremely powerful is peer-to-peer recognition and appreciation. Organizations that have a very formal peer-to-peer recognition and acceptance and appreciation framework, they have found that the team output is significantly high. You will always feel nice when the manager appreciates. That is always there. But when a peer tells you, hey, Balesh, you did a fantastic job. Yeah, I mean, this is really cool. What happens is that when he does something or when she does something, I also want to reciprocate. Now, both our egos have gone up. What happens as a result of we both want to work together? We want to help each other. It's like a cricket match, right? When two people really understand each other, they build a strong partnership. They talk about, hey, this bowler, this is what he's likely to do. This person, this is how he's going to set a field. So let us figure out and score accordingly. Right? Likewise, within the team, when there is peer appreciation, when there is peer acknowledgement, people tend to become highly collaborative. And when there is high level of collaboration, the ownership increases tremendously, mainly because if I'm in a team of, let's say, 7 people, they're a highly collaborative team with great peer-to-peer network. I will feel guilty if I do something, and as a result of which, somebody else is not able to do their task. If there is somebody dependent on me, typically, right, developer has to do something, only then the tester can, finish their job. The developer will feel morally responsible to do their job on time to ensure the tester is able to do their job properly. Otherwise, the tester is always pushed and pressured. They'll be given only a few hours to test, and then there are quality defects, right? That is because of lack of ownership. When you have a very collaborative team, dependencies are well appreciated, and between themselves, they'll figure the job done. So there's a high level of collaboration that will come through peer recognition and peer appreciation. The third element, that is very, very essential is from a manager standpoint to have a very constructive feedback loop established with the team. And a very simple thing that most managers, can follow is what is called as the sandwich feedback approach. Sandwich feedback is essentially you set up these feedback, meetings. What we strongly recommend is feedback meetings should not be more than 15 minutes. Time box it, 15 minutes. It's very easy for people to digest a 15-minute meeting. Start with a good appreciation, something good that you've observed about this. Hey, Naveen, you guys are doing a fantastic job on, the podcast that you're doing. The guiding voice is amazing. I'm really thrilled by what you're doing. Okay, now I have to then give a improvement. Hey, Naveen, maybe you should expand onto 2 or 3 more podcast platforms, and that could help you reach more people. And, maybe that is something for you to consider. With another positive feedback, you know what, you're keeping this conversation so casual. It really makes it easy for people to converse on this podcast platform. I think that is the strength of, why you're so successful. Now, if you take this approach, and of course, when I say something, the feedback receiver will also share some points, right? But do not extend beyond 15 minutes. If it is time boxed and using the sandwich approach, start with a good comment, talk about the improvement opportunity, close it with another good comment. Typically, people have found this to be extremely positive in terms of the quality of the conversations. And as a result of which, they want to do more for the project. They felt appreciated. They also felt, that it's important to act on the feedback. Otherwise, typically, managers give very wishy-washy feedback. So you have to be more proactive. I would have expected more output out of you. What is proactive? What is output is never quantified. So the sandwich feedback is another approach to consider to improve the ownership from teams. So does it help, Naveen? I know
Absolutely.
I spoke at length.
No, absolutely. One thing that resonated with me is the peer recognition platform. In fact, I have witnessed it myself during my stint with General Electric. We had the peer recognition platform, which is very robust. Like you can simply send a thank you note, or you can send some a reward amount associated with it, and everything is taken care intrinsically through some HR billing and all, and you were not involved. And only if at all the recognition amount reward amount exceeds certain threshold, then only mail will be triggered to the bosses or the HR folks respectively and all. But it really did wonders. I can totally relate to you. And also I love the aspect of this sandwich feedback. Yeah, definitely talking something positive and then some improvement need, and again concluding with positive. That gives a sense of belongingness. And most importantly, the 15-minute time box would help, because at times people go overboard, and if it is beyond 15 minutes, I think it is difficult to digest and all, right? So great inputs there. And now let us switch gears and talk about Effilor. Okay, your organization. What is the meaning of Effilor? Why did you name it like that? And what kind of services do you offer to your clients? Anything that you'd share with our audience?
Yeah, I think me and my colleagues in Effilor, primary objective is how do we transform the way people work, right? How people work really needs to be transformed, and how leaders lead has to be transformed as well. That's really our focus. And when we were figuring out how to name the company, he said, if we are transforming how leaders lead and how people work, what are we really doing? We are touching people. We are touching individuals. We are touching teams. He said, what we are in essence doing is making people effective. So Effilor, actually, we coined the name by the acronym of building effective individuals, leaders, and organizations. We just clubbed that and said, okay, let's name our company Effilor. It's very neutral. It doesn't harm anybody, by the name and tone of it. And at the same time, conveys what we do. So that's how we named the company. And what we really do, as I said, one of the things that we really help is making agile work. We help companies ensure that they build that agile culture into their teams. And we do this for both technical teams as well as the business teams. There are a few other areas that we work upon. For example, how leaders lead. How can we transform leaders? So we focus on how can we make people strategic. So there's a strategic leadership program that we have. In today's context, post-pandemic, there are a few things, that leaders would need to change in their approach. For example, one of the things very valued in today's context is how can a leader be authentic? So authentic leadership is another program that we do. The third one is how do we really drive innovation within the team? And it all starts from the top. So how do we drive authentic leadership and innovative leadership? The other aspect, again, mostly we focus on technology and tech-oriented companies. So one of the key things that we have found in the industry, and this is all personal learnings as well, is that we are always focused on tasks and deliveries. There is a customer, there are a set of tasks to be done, there are certain deliveries to be completed, there are so many number of people needed. So we tend to get into very transactional focus and very delivery focus. How do we become more solution focused? So we have done a lot of work with our customers on helping navigate that mindset shift from being delivery centric to solution centric. And when we look at all these aspects, there is a meta skill that is needed to drive all these changes, whether it is agility, solution mindset, leadership change. What is a meta skill called curiosity? So how do we build a curious culture? And therefore, how do we bring that ability to learn, that urge to learn? How do we ensure that you are able to challenge the status quo? How do you nurture creativity? So we address those things by building a curious culture. So these are the key things that we do as an organization. And there are adjacent areas that we typically help on in terms of organization structure, design, process changes, and things like that. But these are kind of, in a nutshell, the services that we do from Effilor.
Mm-hmm. This goes hand in hand with a combination of lean startup mindset, agile methodology, and also transformation aspect. So you guys are focusing on the right card, actually. That's what I can say in terms of improving the efficiency of the organizations while promoting camaraderie among team members and all. Excellent. All right, now let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. What are some of the toughest lessons that you have learned as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, I started late, right? So when I left my corporate job, I was almost 45 years old. So the tough thing to reconcile when I moved into the journey with Effilor is we really have to get over this hierarchy mindset, right? So when I approach customers, for example, in or when I'm talking to a prospect, my initial days, I was trying to see how senior is this person? is he equivalent to me in terms of designation and things like that? And I think that was a huge mistake, because a buyer should not be judged by their position or their designation or whatever. The buyer should be judged based on the need they have, and they're trying to solve something for their organization. So we have to look at that intent of the buyer and not the position or the designation they hold. That was a huge learning for me, because when you're in a senior position in a company, it kind of becomes ingrained in your thought process that you tend to look at hierarchies and positions. So that was a big shift in mindset that I had to go through when I moved out of my corporate position. The second big thing that I learned is to be patient. For example, sometimes customers will delay their projects. They may have their own challenges. When you're running your own team in a corporate setup, you decide the priorities, you decide the funding, so you have a lot of ability to maneuver things. When you're in a customer and a service provider approach, you really need to have the patience to understand what the customer is going through. And that was a big learning. Sometimes initially I would get frustrated. Oh, in May, it is now August, still not started. What are these guys doing? Bad decision makers. We tend to make our own judgments and have a biased approach towards customers. I think it's really important to understand what they go through, what emotions they go through, what is the challenges in their buying cycle, and therefore, if you're able to address that by understanding those buying cycle challenges of the customer, you will be able to solve their problems beyond what they're asking you to do. That is another major learning that I had. So I think in the short span of 4.5 years that I've been doing this, I would say these two are big learnings for me.
So it's more about focusing on the not focusing on the designation of the buyer, and at the same time being patient and being empathetic, understand what the customer is going through. Excellent insights. And Balesh, this has been wonderful conversation, but I would like to spice up this episode by asking you a few interesting rapid fire questions. Okay.
All right.
With your consent, I am proceeding with my first question. What is your favorite word in another language?
In a language that I cannot speak?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I talk about from Malayalam movies is Satyam Parada. And my wife pulled my leg saying that those are the only two words you know in Malayalam. So I think whenever we have some conversations, I prod my children, hey, Satyam Parada. So I think that possibly is a standout for me.
What is the meaning? Tell the truth or?
Yeah, tell the truth. Satyam is truth. Parada means tell. So Satyam Parada is tell the truth.
Yeah, I can relate because it is close to. I mean, all South Indian languages.
Yeah.
Or Dravidian follow this Dravidian script and all. And I often watch these Malayalam movies and all. You could relate certain words and all, not exactly the entire thing, but yeah, quite interesting. Yeah. Now comes my next one. If you could live anywhere in the world or universe without any visa restrictions, where would you live?
Actually, I wouldn't go too far. I've been quite a few times to the Nilgiris hills in Tamil Nadu. I love them. The tea estates, the forest. A lot of elephant corridors. I love them, and I keep going to the Nilgiris every once in a while. I don't think I need to go too far. If there's a way for me to settle down there and retire over there, I would love it. Stay among nature.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. So moving on to my next one. What is one thing you wish you enjoyed more?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say I should have spent more time with my children. And if there's a way to roll back the time and go back 20 years, I would love to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, fair enough. And moving on, what was your last impulse buy?
Impulse buy? My running shoes. It was a very impulse buy because I bought this in November. There was a sale going on and somebody known to me was an influencer. So she said, hey, I'll give you another 40% discount, buy it. As soon as I got that WhatsApp message, I went online and booked that shoe. Didn't care about the brand and whether it would fit me well or something, but I bought it. So I think, that was the recent one that I can remember in terms of impulse buy. As soon as the WhatsApp came, I just decided. And it was not a cheap shoe. So
Yeah, got it. So now we know how to lure you. All right. So moving on to the final one for the rapid fire. What is one electronic gadget that you like to see or invent?
More than an electronic gadget, I would say I need a universal charger. Laptop for my headset for my phone. Every time I travel, I need to carry 4 different types of chargers for each of those devices. If there's a single charger that would solve the problem, that is what I would be really interested in.
Definitely. I think I'm going to buy it for sure. And maybe if you ask me the same question, I would say I need a device which doesn't require charging at all.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in fact, during my college days, I used to have a solar calculator, engineering calculator. It was amazing. It lasted all 4 years, never failed.
Yeah, yeah.
And something like that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. All right. So, yeah, that was an interesting rapid fire. And before I let you go, one final question, okay, for today's conversation, Balesh. What will be your one piece of advice to those aspiring to begin their careers?
I can only tell from my own experience, which is no matter what profession, what role, you're in technology, business, whatever that you may be doing, I think the big learning for me is always focus on connecting with people, building a network, having a rapport, relationship. I think this is what really will stand in the long run. And this is what I tell my children as well. Never lose your friends. If they call you to go out or something, go. It's okay. That's what will, stand with you, not your educational qualification and other things. Skills are needed, but I think more than that, the people connect is extremely important. And I think sometimes we tend to undervalue that. And in the modern social media frenzy, we connect more people electronically than in person. And I think the more you relate to people and understand them and connect with them, you will not realize how important it is in the long term. So I think that is a big realization for me, and that's what I would strongly urge everyone to focus on.
That is a very, very important thing to really follow. Because in the social media days, like we see people having hundreds or thousands of followers on their various networks and all. But when it comes to face-to-face interaction, they fail to maintain proper eye contact and really establish that particular connection and all, right? Yeah, you brought in a very important perspective. And
I think the power of the connections is really about when you need something, when you need help, who among the thousands of your social media followers can help you?
Yeah.
Right. When you try to look at that metric, I would say, it's not about whom you connected, on LinkedIn or Facebook or Insta or wherever. It's about whom you can call and have a conversation. And I think that is very, very, and especially as people become more and more senior, for example, professionally and in their careers, it's only the people and relationships that count and nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. And this has been a very, very great discussion. And I thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it. Thank you so much, Balesh, for being part of the Guiding Voice journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Really pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Naveen, for the opportunity. I think you are doing a fantastic job, and I'm sure I'm going to follow you all through in all the channels in which you're going to post content. And I'm really glad that I connected with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks to Coffee Mug as well. All right. So great. Pleasure hosting you, Balesh. Pleasure to have you. So folks, before we move into the trivia section, here is a small request to you. Please subscribe to us in case if you haven't done already. Also, if you have loved the conversation and loved this episode and found it useful, please share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who can benefit from the Guiding Voice. Because your friends also will learn new stuff like you and will gain a set of new subscribers. Thank you so much in advance. Now, let's cruise into the trivia segment of today's episode. So today we had a wonderful discussion with Balesh. He enlightened us with his topic, making agile work. And in the beginning of this episode, I mentioned about various flavors of agile, like Scrum, DSDM, feature-driven development, extreme programming, behavior-driven development, and so on. So I'm going to share more insights about DSDM as part of today's trivia. You know what DSDM stands for? It stands for Dynamic System Development Method, and it was created in the year 1994 by a consortium of software engineers, most notable and influential in the development framework being Jennifer Stapleton and Ari Van Benekom. So these two guys were the backbone of DSDM. And DSDM is considered the predecessor of Agile Project Manager, Agile Project Management. In fact, it emphasizes backlog prioritization, like if you were to relate it to the Moscow technique, and also short iterations, constant and regular user feedback, flexible scope. And these are all the essential elements for present product management. So likewise, you have various organizations following different types of flavors of agile methodologies and so on. In case if you have come across any interesting agile methodology, please drop in your comments. And also, if you have come across any experts like Balesh who are helping the organizations drive their change management, project management, and operations manage effectively, please provide the reference. You can reach out to me through social media or email me at theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Folks, I'm your host, Naveen Samala, a fellow IT professional on a mission to make a difference in the lives and careers of millions across the globe. Until next time, bye-bye.